What if I told you the most dangerous opponent to Shedeur Sanders' NFL career isn't wearing a helmet, isn't disguised in a blitz package, and isn't even standing across the line of scrimmage? It's a lie. A carefully crafted, malicious lie, whispered into the ears of restless fans, nurtured in the shadows by low-level insiders chasing cheap clicks, and amplified by talking heads who've always had a problem with a young black quarterback daring to carry himself like a CEO. You've seen the headlines. You've heard the chatter. Shedeur Sanders on the trade block. Browns ready to move on. Colts interested in the 5th-round QB. It sounds official. It sounds credible. But peel back the curtain, and it collapses faster than an offensive line missing assignments. Because the truth is simple. This rumor is not football. This rumor is sabotage. The origin story of this lie doesn't begin in Berea at the Browns facility. It doesn't begin in some late-night call between general managers. It doesn't even begin with Adam Schefter or Ian Rappaport. It begins in the dark alleyways of the internet. Low-tier betting blogs, copycat sports gossip sites, and desperate content creators trying to stir chaos. One speculative post from a sportsbook writer snowballed into national coverage. One, maybe, turned into breaking news. And suddenly, a quarterback who hasn't even unpacked his locker is branded as expendable. That's the power of narrative warfare in today's NFL. First, they came after his confidence. Then they weaponized his father's name against him. Now, they've manufactured a fake trade rumor to bury Shedeur Sanders before he ever gets the chance to prove himself. Think about that. The player who dismantled college defenses with surgical precision. The one who reads coverages like a veteran and carries himself with unmatched poise. They want you to believe he's 4th-string material. They want you to believe he's disposable. But when you track the receipts, the whole thing unravels. The rumor's root came from Jonathan Adams, a writer for BetUs, a sportsbook site, not ESPN, not the Browns front office, not even a beat reporter with access. Adams floated the speculative thought, maybe the Browns could cut Shedeur, maybe the Colts would take a chance. That's all it took. One sentence built on maybe. From there, blogs desperate for clicks like Motorcycle News. Net? Yes, a motorcycle gossip site turned fake sports outlet, ran with the story. Their article read like a bad AI draft with 0 sources, 0 quotes, and 0 accountability. But in the NFL media machine, perception snowballs faster than facts. Once one outlet posts, the others follow. A cycle begins. And soon enough, national talking heads repeat it on shows as if it's gospel. That's how lies become reality in the eyes of fans. But here's what they're not telling you. While the rumor spread like wildfire, Shedeur wasn't scrolling, wasn't panicking, wasn't begging the Browns to clarify. He was working. While anonymous insiders played telephone with fiction, Shedeur Sanders was back home in Texas, grinding in the relentless summer heat. And this wasn't some Instagram-friendly workout staged for likes. This was real sweat, real chemistry, real leadership. At the Sanders Ranch, Shedeur locked in with receivers like Gage Larvadain, a young wideout overlooked by most, but building undeniable chemistry with Shedeur since rookie minicamp. These weren't staged drills. They were live reps, timing routes, pressure scenarios, 3rd and 9 situations being rehearsed without cameras rolling. It was quiet leadership, the kind of work that doesn't trend on social media, but wins games when the lights come on. Because Shedeur Sanders understands something that separates pros from pretenders. How you work when no one is watching determines what happens when everyone is watching. That's the part the media ignores. They don't want the story of a disciplined, CEO-minded rookie quarterback outworking veterans. That doesn't fit their agenda. What sells better is dysfunction. A young black quarterback, confident and outspoken, getting labeled a problem before he even has a chance. But strip away the noise and the truth is clear. Shedeur isn't being judged by talent. He's being judged by perception. That's why Vegas betting odds currently place him dead last in Cleveland's QB room. According to Polymarket, Joe Flacco sits at 50% to start. Kenny Pickett, yes, the same Kenny Pickett who redefined mid in Pittsburgh, sits at 22%. Dylan Gabriel, a rookie with 0 NFL experience, is at 16%. And Shedeur? 14%, the lowest in the room. How does that make sense? The best pure passer, the most NFL-ready processor of defenses, somehow the least respected. That tells you everything, because this league has never been comfortable when a black quarterback threatens the established order. They're fine if you're raw. They're fine if you're athletic. But polished, precise, confident? Cris Carter, Hall of Fame wide receiver, stepped into the spotlight and declared that Shedeur Sanders and his family had overplayed their hand. At first glance, it might sound like just another hot take. But peel it back, and it was something far more insidious. A coded message, a warning shot, and a reinforcement of the very system that has worked to keep players like Shedeur in check for decades. Carter didn't bring facts. He didn't bring evidence. He brought feelings, and those feelings reeked of resentment. He suggested that Shedeur didn't have the leverage to dictate where he should be drafted, that the Sanders family had asked for too much, too soon. Think about the irony. In a league that has lied about concussions, colluded to blackball Colin Kaepernick, and manipulated contracts for decades, Cris Carter suddenly wants us to believe the NFL is too fair, too honest, too transparent to collude against a young quarterback? That's not analysis. That's narrative protection. That's gatekeeping. And Carter knew exactly what he was doing. When he said him and his family, we all knew who he meant. Deion Sanders, primetime himself. The man who redefined swagger in the NFL, who turned coaching upside down at Jackson State in Colorado, who dared to empower his sons and build a brand outside the NFL machine. Deion's independence has made him a target from the moment he stopped playing. And now, through Shedeur, that same independence threatens to enter the quarterback pipeline. Carter wasn't just criticizing Shedeur, he was undermining an entire legacy. He was attacking the idea that a black quarterback could enter the league on his own terms. He was reminding the audience, and by extension the NFL, that players like Shedeur are supposed to know their place. That's why his words hit harder. They weren't just about one player. They were about reinforcing a hierarchy that benefits everyone but the athlete. Let's make something clear. Carter said Shedeur isn't Eli Manning. And he's right. Eli was privileged. He was protected by family legacy, handed leverage, and allowed to dictate his landing spot without consequence. Shedeur Sanders is none of those things. And maybe that's exactly why he's more dangerous. Because Shedeur doesn't need privilege. He doesn't need protection. He has preparation. He has leadership. He has receipts. He has put in work every single day, in college and now in the NFL. And if given a real chance, he has the ability to flip the entire narrative on its head. So, what happens if this so-called trade actually goes down? Let's examine it. If the Browns fold under pressure and ship Shedeur Sanders to Indianapolis, it won't be a football move. It'll be a political one. A way of preserving the status quo in Cleveland. Because let's be real, if Shedeur stays, he rises. And if he rises, the entire carefully curated quarterback hierarchy collapses. The myth that fifth-round quarterbacks can't lead franchises? Gone. The idea that swagger equals selfishness? Buried. The narrative that Deion's sons aren't NFL ready? Dead. The Browns don't want that smoke. That's why his name is being floated in trade rumors. Not because of on-field play, but because of the threat of what happens if he succeeds. But here's the twist. Even if the trade happens, Shedeur wins. Because in Indianapolis, he would enter a quarterback room in chaos. A room with a broken Richardson, a washed-up Daniel Jones, and a franchise desperate for stability. That's not a death sentence. That's an opportunity. That's striking distance. Shedeur Sanders, whether in Cleveland or Indianapolis, is positioned to disrupt. That's why the media is scrambling. Because the truth is, they can't stop what's already in motion. And Shedeur Sanders is already coming. He doesn't need validation from Cris Carter. He doesn't need confirmation from insiders. He doesn't need the betting odds to swing in his favor. He has the work. He has the discipline. He has the leadership. And every single day he puts in reps when no one is watching, he's cashing checks the media can't void. Let them whisper. Let them speculate. Let them drag his name across ticker lines and blogs. At the end of the day, Shedeur Sanders will let his game do the answering. Because history doesn't remember rumors. It remembers results. And results are exactly what he's been preparing for his entire life. That's the part people miss. This isn't just another rookie trying to survive training camp. This is a quarterback forged under the spotlight of Deion Sanders' shadow, tested against relentless criticism, and hardened by a system that never wanted him to succeed. That's why this isn't just about football. It's about power. It's about control. It's about a league terrified of a quarterback who doesn't need its validation. Shedeur Sanders isn't waiting for the NFL to anoint him. He's already built his own blueprint. He's already walking with legacy. And whether it's in Cleveland, Indian,